Hi, I'm Rob Coston with Nautilus International, and I'm very pleased to be talking today to Katie Higginbottom, head of the ITF Seafarers Trust, about a new report the Trust has issued together with World Maritime University about hours of work and rest on board. That's called Quantifying an Inconvenient Truth. Katie, first of all, thanks very much for talking to me.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So, this is an issue that comes up again and again for our members, the culture of adjustment on board, the fatigue they're being subjected to, long hours working culture. So this is a really important piece of work, in my opinion, and the results you've come up with here are quite shocking, if not perhaps surprising. Um, so first of all, before we talk about the findings, what was it that made the Trust decide to look into the issue again, and why now?
Well, back in 2021, or rather prior to 2021, we commissioned World Maritime University to do a kind of pilot study, which was then published under the Culture of Adjustment report, which we thought was a really strong piece of academic research, and which effectively looked at an issue that we've known for a long time has been rampant in the maritime industry, that is the issue of fatigue. And so when I previously worked in the ITF in the Seafarer section, we've done various studies with different academics on fatigue, with an aim to try and address the ever thorny issue of minimum safe manning, and had never really got anywhere. We always hit a brick wall. There's always complete resistance to even looking at formulations of manning, let alone the revolutionary idea of having more people on board. So in discussions with Professor Raphael Baumler at World Maritime University, when he was just pitching various research projects that we might consider funding, he suggested this project, and it was interesting for me to come to it from a different angle, because here we're focusing on the same issue, which for me in the Trust is fundamentally about welfare and well-being of seafarers, and allowing them to have some control over their quality of life and their health and all of their kind of impacts that has on physical and mental well-being. So his idea was to come at it from the fact that the whole industry conspires to adjust records in order to comply with hours of work and hours of rest. And everyone kind of knows it. The seafarers know it, the seafarers do it, the industry knows it, the Port State Control know it, but nobody's completely responsible for it. And there are kind of built-in incentives for people to kind of go along with that, because the consequences of not going along with it are much more onerous and difficult, especially for the seafarers, than just sort of adjusting things. And so I thought, so that piece of research was really strong, and came out in 2021 and had a lot of pushback from the industry, who said, well, it's not, it's not sufficient sample, it's not enough data there to go on. So because of that, we decided, okay, we'll go with a more long-term project. So this is a 3-year project, which is basically providing the quantitative ballast to back up the findings of a culture of adjustment. So I'll stop there, otherwise I'm rattling on forever.
Okay, so you said you were sort of providing some of that detail that the industry accused you of lacking last time. So what is the process that's gone into this report? How did you get the data this time, and what kind of thing have you collected?
So this is primarily based on surveys of seafarers. And so that's through WMU, and we're not involved at all in the research itself. We're just the funders. But the culture of adjustment was more interview based, and this is more survey based and crunching data. So it's a really decent sample. I think they got over 9,000 responses, of which over 6,000 are kind of validated data to use. So relative to the size of the sector, it's considered much more than is required for serious research. So it's pretty solid and pretty representative across the piece. 48 hours is normal. Well, not even normal. I mean, 35 hours is normal in some worlds, but definitely not 75 hours. And that's been completely normalized in the shipping industry. almost 90% have got no weekly day off. Almost 80% get no full days off at all during their contract. More than 7 cases of non-compliance are reported every month. But, seafarers are stating that that's the kind of adjustments they're kind of having to make. So it's really entrenched. And the other thing that's interesting, I think, about the report is, alongside the new data collected through the survey, the researchers have put kind of additional panels showing extracts from existing previous research that basically states, look, we know this already. This is just reaffirming what's been said over the decades, and nothing's happened. Nobody's addressed it. Nobody's considered it to be, either relevant or important enough to address. So it's really a kind of cumulative effect that I think one of the phrases that Raphael Baumler uses is the normalization of deviance. That the seafarers themselves, the whole industry, we're all complicit in this. We've kind of allowed it to become normal that seafarers have to work excessively long hours, and that's just the operational, aspects of being at sea. When I think we need to re-look at this and think, compared to shore-based welfare, compared to what's acceptable and normal to the majority of the population that benefits from seafarers working at sea invisibly, but wouldn't accept those kind of working hours. We need to kind of get serious about it. But I think the other thing I think is that we don't need to do this in a confrontational way. We need to get together with all of the stakeholders in the industry and kind of look at practical approaches to enforcing the existing regulation. We don't need to kind of start a revolution. We just need to start a kind of proper cooperation.
Well, I thought it was interesting what you said there about comparing with shore based workers or anyone working on shore. That's where it really stands out to me how bad these figures are. The one I noted down was that only 3.3% of seafarers have their weekly working hours aligned with the global average. So nearly 97% of seafarers are working more than the global average, which is a crazy figure when you stop to think about it. So it's a bad situation. We've known that for a very long time. It sounds like things haven't been improving at all over the years. What are you recommending to tackle this issue and this culture that's causing the problem? Because it's not just 1 or 2 bad actors. This is a cultural matter across the whole industry.
Well, I think what we really want is for the industry to recognise that it is an issue, that it is an issue and it's not really acceptable. Then I think we need, as I just said, like stakeholder collaboration, cooperation. We need to be working together with the P&I clubs, with the industry, with Port State Control, with all of the people that have got a role to play, but individually can't quite fix it on their own or don't see it as their responsibility. I think we need to do that in a kind of cooperative way. And I think we need primarily to focus on properly enforcing the existing regulation. It might be that there needs to be, we need to look at the Maritime Labour Convention, which allows the 2 different formulations of calculating on rest hours or work hours. But, I would leave the politicians and our union representatives to get into the sort of detail of policy. But in principle, I think it's recognition, cooperation, and then enforcement of what's already there would be a marvellous start. But of course, that would lead to people having to start employing more people.
Yes, that's true. And it's interesting you bring that up, because of course the industry is reporting that they have a big recruitment and retention crisis that's predicted to get much worse as time goes on. Is solving this issue going to be important for them to address this?
I think so. I mean, I think, obviously there's also a lot of conversations at the moment around the kind of digital changes and the new technology coming in, and if that's going to result in autonomous ships or if that's going to result in, saving workload. And obviously there is a lot of technological development going on now, and probably maritime's got quite a lot of catching up to do in some senses. And maybe that can be part of the answer if it's thought about in the right way, that makes it a tool for seafarers and people operating the ships, and not something that's, all focused on how exciting to have new technology that can get rid of people. But I think, there, especially since COVID, there's been a lot more discussion about welfare and well-being of seafarers, and about mental health, and about the stresses of working at sea, whether it's because of being isolated or because of maybe being worried about the training you need for all these different regulations that are coming in, whether it's digital stress, or, so many things that can have an impact on seafarers, that really, really needs a supportive culture and environment. And part of that has got to be having a team that's got enough people in it to allow them to comply with the regulation on hours of work. And then, from there, we might look at trying to improve the regulation on hours of work and hours of rest.
Yeah, well, Nautilus is going to be pushing as part of our campaigning for a just transition to make sure that when this new technology goes on board, that isn't an excuse to reduce crewing levels, and that it actually helps to reduce fatigue, perhaps by affecting people's workloads positively. And so hopefully that will be part of any solution. Thanks very much for that, Katie. I really recommend anybody who can to go and have a look at the report for themselves and look at some of these statistics, and especially people on the industry side, if any of you are watching, to really get to know this issue. It is so serious and it deeply affects our members, and they're very concerned about it. Katie, was there anything else you wanted to raise while we're talking together?
Since you give me the opportunity, I would quite like to just do a pitch for our current survey on shore leave, Seafarers shore leave. So that's on our website and gone out through social media. It's something that we just really wanted to, we've heard since COVID that shore leave is maybe not quite back as it was prior to the pandemic, and it wasn't great then. So we just would really like to have a good picture and a good representative picture of what's going on, whether seafarers are taking shore leave, and if they're not, what the barriers are. Partly because we'd like to sort of campaign the fundamental importance of shore leave as a right to seafarers, and then partly also to check whether we're funding adequate shore-based welfare services. So it'd be really helpful if your members look out for our ITF Seafarers Trust shore leave survey.
Great, thank you. Well, we'll pop that in the description box below as well. And I hope to catch up with you about that after that survey is completed.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thanks for talking to us today.